Welcome back to Peak Health Revolution. Today we're going to be going through a full upper body workout that will help you if you suffer from shoulder pain or find that shoulder is really restricted. So if you have trouble getting overhead or find you're always rolled forward, this workout's for you. We're going to go through a ton of mobility and corrective work and then a bunch of exercises that are going to help you get that shoulder moving well again, get it stabilized so that you can get strong through your shoulder, whether that's overhead pressing or horizontal pressing. So we are going to use a couple of different things for this. So commercial gym should have just about all of this gear, or if you have a home gym setup, you should have most of this stuff, or might have to go out and grab a couple of things or substitute. But we're going to need a barbell, a Swiss ball or exercise ball, a bench that we can put at an incline. We're going to need a foam roller, a heavy resistance band, a light resistance band, a lacrosse ball or something similar, then a light dumbbell, something like a 3 or a 5 pound dumbbell, and then a little bit heavier, probably something in the range of 25 pounds if you're a guy. That's reasonably strong, or maybe a little bit lighter if you're a female, or a little bit weaker, something like a 15 or a 20. And that should have you covered. So let's get into it. Start with just some stuff on the ground to help warm up our shoulder. I'm just going to quickly show you guys all of these exercises so you can get a good idea of what we're doing with it and get the finer details of what we're trying to accomplish. And then you can go through the actual full workout on your own at your own speed. So first exercise, we just want to start with some shoulder taps. So we're going to go shoulders over our elbow here. Then we're just going to bring those knees up just a little bit. And we're going to alternate shoulder taps here. We want to go at a rate that's not so fast that we're hiding the fact that we are having trouble stabilizing that shoulder. We want to challenge that shoulder a little bit right now, but we don't need to go so slow that we're holding it for a couple of seconds, just back and forth. Going to do about 5 of those on each side. Then we're going to get into a little bear crawl variation. So very similar position here. And then as this hand moves forward, that leg will as well. So we'll look like this. And what we want to do here is actually move both forward and back with it. It's great for finding that coordination again and for warming up that shoulder joint. Next exercise, I'm going to show you 2 variations to it. So if you want to do the little bit easier one, all we're going to do is start shoulder width apart here, and we're just going to put one hand out, drop down, catch ourselves, and push back up. So we're kind of teetering there and just using our balance and our weight and just shifting it back up. So it's not a huge push up, we're mostly just moving the rest of our body. Now, if we want to make things a little bit more challenging for us on that shoulder, get more rotation into it, what we're going to do is this knee up, this arm down. Then what we're going to do is lift up, rotate through, and then push up. Then come back down, rotate back to that starting position. So you can see that this shoulder has to go through this rotational phase to get to that starting position of the easier variation. So start off with the easier one and then progress into that second one. Now, those are our first 3 exercises just to get that shoulder warmed up. Then we're going to grab our lacrosse ball and work into our pec a little bit. So what you're going to do with this lacrosse ball is just get it into this pec area. Doesn't have to be an exact spot. You're just going to look around for where's the tissue that needs it the most. Where do I feel that discomfort, that tight ropey band? So what we're going to do, either just find a squat rack or corner of a wall just so that you can get your head past and it's a little more comfortable here. So we're going to find that spot first. We're going to move it around a little bit. Once we found a spot, then you want to just pin that spot down essentially. So put a bit more pressure in it, hold it on that spot. Then you want to see about moving that arm through a bit of range of motion while you have that spot pinned down. So that's the next one. Once we've done both sides on our pec, we're going to grab our Swiss ball and get a good stretch into that tissue that we've already worked on. So important thing here with the Swiss ball is actually the positioning of it relative to our shoulder. So I'm going to show you what we don't want to do first. We're going to get down into this position. If I'm out here, yes, I can get a stretch through my pec, but what we actually want is to bring that ball in a little bit closer to the point where it's supporting the shoulder joint a bit. We feel just a bit of pressure of the ball on the actual pec here. So get it so it's supporting that shoulder joint. Find that right spot for you. And then what you want to do, you're going to start a bit higher here and then drop down until you find that stretch. Then you have an option to just hang out in this and enjoy the stretch. Or what I like to do is just move in and out of it just a little bit. But what you want is a nice light stretch through that pec. We're actually trying to target our pec minor here, and that's why we have it kind of supporting that shoulder. If I go way out to here, I can get a stretch. It's going to be more pec major. That pec minor gets really tight. So that's why I've targeted it with the lacrosse ball, and then with the Swiss ball, start to help to open that chest up. Next thing we want to do here is grab your foam roller. We're going to use it in just a second here, but first we're going to do a couple cat-cows. Most people are pretty familiar with this by now, but there's some things that we're missing when we do it. So we want to get stacked with our shoulders over our wrists, hips over the knees, and then a lot of the times we see people just shooting for these end positions of here and here. What we want to do is create like a wave where we're trying to move one little vertebrae at a time with the goal of being able to move them individually, or we're trying to find where is that sticky point where I move them in a big clunky piece of 2 or 3 vertebrae, and that's what we're going to target with our foam roller. So we're going to do just 2 or 3 of these to try and find out where is that point for me. Where do I feel clunky going through this or have trouble moving one at a time? Or where do I just feel the most stiff and like locked up when I do this? So once you've found that spot for yourself by doing a couple, now we have 2 options of what we're going to do with our foam roller here. Number 1, I can just get into that spot that's bothering me and nice and slowly and try and get deep, roll over that area. You can even wiggle back and forth a bit, come back on it, or we can get right into that area, then lock our rib cage down a bit. We don't want to get a whole bunch of flare there. We want to lock this, or sorry, not our rib cage, lock the core in a little bit so that we don't get that rib cage moving a whole bunch. Then we're going to take our arms overhead and back down. We can adjust maybe a vertebrae and work up and down in that area that we're most stiff. So that's what we're going to do with our foam roller. Then we're going to come back, check in on that. How does that feel now when we do our cat-cows? And ideally that should feel better. It should feel a little more unlocked through that area. Then we'll go through some extra reps here to remind our body like, hey, now that I've freed up that spot, we got a window of time where we can move through that area and tell our body like, hey, you're capable of moving through this. It doesn't have to be a big clunk of 3 vertebrae moving. We can actually move it individually. So that's our goal with the foam roller. We've released our pec now. We've released our mid back there. Next thing, we're going to get into that really tight lat with some hanging and some retractions. Here, what we want to do is just come grab a bar and hang off of it. A lot of people are going to feel that immediately through the lat. It's going to stretch and pull there. If you have trouble with your grip strength, break it up. Try for at least a minute of hanging here. If you need to shake your hands out for a second, do that and then get back up. If you need some kind of assist, feel free to do that. We're not trying to challenge our grip strength here. We're trying to work on freeing up that lat, which takes time under tension to let that go. So if you need to use some wrist wraps or something, by all means do that. Now more advanced, what we can start to do is challenge our shoulder to get those shoulder blades to tuck down and back. So imagine that you're trying to tuck your shoulder blades into some back pockets here. We're just going to come up, hold for a couple of seconds, back down, come up, hold a couple seconds, back down. That's going to start to free up that lat and get that shoulder blade learning how to move again a bit better. Next thing we're going to do, come down to the ground, lay flat on your back with your knees up. I want to push that lower back into the ground just a little bit, and then lock our core down so we don't get a big arch through our rib cage. So lock that down. Then we're going to test, where are my lats at? How much length do I have in them? How tight are they? And that's going to dictate which variation we're going to do next. So we're going to start thumbs up. Can I get all the way in touch? If I can, great. Tuck those thumbs in. Can I get back in touch? awesome. Go flat hands. Great if you can do that. Then we can go to what we call a floor angel, so kind of like cactus arms here, and then we're just sliding them up and back down, trying to keep the shoulder, the elbow, and the wrist and hand all in contact with the floor while we do that. If you can't get to this stage, which is likely, then you're just going to stay at whatever stage you're at. Maybe it's thumbs tucked here, and you're going to focus on bringing the arms as far out like you're reaching and as far back as you can. If that means you get to here, then you come up, stretch that again, try and get as far as you can, keep that ribs locked down, and that's going to be your next one. If you can get to the floor angel, great. Now we get to get into the fun stuff, some actual strengthening work a bit here. We mobilize, we got that shoulder, the tissues freed up a bit, moving better. We're gonna grab our light dumbbells, something like 3 to 5 pounds. Really, we want this quite light because we're gonna work on our lower trap muscle, which is quite weak comparative to a lot of the other musculature in our back. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna lean forward here, get set up. And then what we want to do, kind of a Y shape with our thumbs up to the sky. We're going to come up, hold for a second, then a couple slow seconds down, come up, 1, 2, 3, coming down. And that's our trap 3 raise. That's what we want it to look like. Next thing we're going to move into, we're just going to adjust this to a flat bench so that we can do some external rotation work. So our rotator cuff is made up of 4 different muscles, and we're going to work on the ones that externally rotate the shoulder. They tend to be the weaker ones that we have problems with. So we're going to put our leg up here, elbow on top of that. Now we don't need to come down as low as the point where our shoulder shoots forward, just to where it kind of ends here where you run out of range of motion. And all you're doing, bringing it up and back down. It might feel like a relatively light weight right now, but trust me, you get to 8, 10, 12 reps, you'll be surprised at how quickly this muscle fatigues out on you. So keep it light, make sure you can get that 10 to 12 range under good control with this too. So I should hypothetically be able to stop anywhere in this range of motion and still control it. So that's our next exercise. And we're going to get into what I consider to be the most fun but most difficult exercise to learn because it involves so many moving parts. But it's such a functional exercise that I have to include it. It's great for the shoulder, getting lots of movement back into it, but also integrating your entire body. A lot of the times our pushing and pulling motions, when we look at the gym setting, we tend to be on a bench or flat against a wall or have some kind of a system supporting us, when in reality, once we're out in the world, we're having to stabilize through our legs and our core, then work as a whole unit to either push something or pull something. And this exercise teaches us exactly that. So you're going to grab a light resistance band around shoulder height, maybe a little bit lower. And then obviously you're adjusting the band based on your strength. What we want to do is set up first of all for a pull here. So we're going to go to a staggered stance. This foot basically facing forward, this one turned out a little bit. Then our focus is this is going to be pulled forward, this is going to be back. We're going to rotate, swap these arms. So we're basically just seesawing back and forth here without movement through the rest of the body. Then as you get this movement down, what you can do is pull it in tight here, and we start to work on just the lower body, shifting weight back and forth. So about 70% here, 30% here. Shift 70 to 30. We're never going all our weight into any leg, but we're learning how to shift that weight back and forth. Next thing, most advanced, we're going to combine those two movements. So we're forward, then we shift back as we pull, shift forward again, and that's the most advanced variation of that. And you can see the carryover of that and how much more weight you'll be able to move because you have your whole body. You have the weight that you're shifting and throwing and utilizing your weight, plus all the muscles, everything down from your foot, all the way up to that shoulder and that arm pulling on that. So that's the pull, the push variation, same idea, leg forward, leg turned out a little bit. And we're gonna start simple again. This one forward, this one back. Then they're just swapping position there. Exact same thing we were doing, except now the load is in that pushing arm. And you can see just how much the shoulder itself moves, everything from way out here reached to all the way retracted back here. And that's what we're looking to do, is get movement back into our shoulder, because that shoulder blade is having trouble moving, and we're having compensation patterns from what we're doing in our day-to-day life that get us out of position, create those compensations. We lack stability then, and we can't build strength, because if there's no stability, the body's not going to let you do something challenging for it because it doesn't feel safe in that movement pattern. Get the stability back, get everything back how it should be working, so that we can build strength through our shoulders, whether we're pressing overhead, pushing, or pulling. So that's that exercise. We'll get into some more. Now you can tell we're into the actual workout. We'll get into our inverted row, our Z press, and our face pulls. So the variation of the face pull that I like to set up does require more than a lot of other setups. It's a double band setup, but I like it because you're never stuck with like something in your face. If you do it with just the band, or sorry, just the rope at a gym and a cable setup, like your tricep push down rope, you find that you run out of space and you're in your face. And what we want is to get way back here with that face pull. But a lot of the times we're seeing people just coming kind of like this. That's not what we want. We want a fuller range of motion with that. That's why I love this double banded setup, where I use a thinner band and a thicker band to gain a lot of room, right? So now when I do this, I can get way back here. So it's kind of a roll back, external rotation into one smooth movement there. So that's our face pull, and that's why I love this double banded setup, is there's tons of freedom there. We're never gonna run out of space. So that's the biggest piece. Next up, we have our inverted row. So you can adjust the height based on your strength. The flatter out you are, more your gravity and your weight's going to be working against you, more difficult it is. So if you're not as strong, bring this up a bit higher and be at a more of an angle here. So I'm going to drop down. We're going nice stiff body, and we're just rowing up to the bar, back down, helping build that mid back strength back up. Next exercise, we're really going to be working that overhead motion. We've done a ton of pushing and pulling, and that shoulder blade is moving really well now. It's really well warmed up. I'm going to grab these dumbbells and simply press overhead. Now, why I love this variation is it kind of limits how much weight you can actually move, because your core has to work and engage while that shoulder is moving overhead. And oftentimes we want to see that our core, our rib cage, and our shoulder can all work together. So this is why it's such a great exercise. If you have trouble getting overhead with both, if there's still some pain, try doing just one dumbbell and letting your body come to the side a little bit. It just adds a little bit of compensation until you can get overhead freely without any discomfort. So that's the bulk of the workout itself. We did a bunch of mobilizing, warming up of that shoulder, getting that shoulder free to move. And then we got into some exercises where we actually challenge that shoulder through those ranges of motion. Now we're going to finish up with a little bit of soft tissue work. So grab your lacrosse ball, foam roller, heavy band, and I'll show you a couple exercises that we're going to finish off with. Now, obviously, we need to consider the fact that this workout has been designed for like what most people have as their problem around their shoulder. They're rolled forward, they have really tight lats, they have trouble getting overhead, and they have pain with pressing movements. So it's going to help with a lot of those things. But if you're dealing with more serious issues, if you've had a significant rotator cuff tear or injury, you've separated your shoulder, you're getting nerve pain, stuff like that, then you want to seek professional medical attention, whether that's going in, seeing a physiotherapist, an athletic therapist, or I work online one-on-one with clients where I go through an actual assessment specific to them, and then we build their mobility, their correctives, and their workouts specific to what they're trying to accomplish and where they're currently at and what the problem is. So oftentimes that looks like a lot of mobility at the start and not too aggressive of workouts, something like this where it's a workout but it's a little bit lighter. Then as you get better at moving and you have less pain, you get out of pain, you're moving good, then it's less of that mobility, more on the workouts till you get to a point where it's like you're working out, you're accomplishing your goal, and you're just doing enough mobility that you're not falling back into that pain sequence or movement dysfunction. That being said, let's get into the soft tissue stuff. So first one, this lacrosse ball is going kind of right on that shoulder blade. Kind of think a little triangle shape coming out here. That's what we want to target. You'll go up against a wall, and then you're just finding where are those tight bands, where are those achy spots. Try and find one to get onto. Once you've found one, adjust that ball, find something. You have a couple options here. You can either just sit into it and let the pressure of that ball on the tissue, that itself will help it release, or you can kind of grind over it and try and just move that ball in little tiny movements around that specific spot, and that will also help it release. So that's what we want to do for that first one. Get into that kind of triangle of the shoulder there and release some of the tension. The next one, if we have our shoulder blade here, obviously our spine here, we want to get that ball in between those two, just off of that shoulder blade, then work into this area, finding the most kind of gritty, adhered tissue that we can and trying to break that up so that our shoulder can start to move more freely again. So again, best place to start with this one is on a wall because you can adjust the pressure a little bit easier. Once you've gotten good there, ideally what we get to is where you can go down to the ground and add a little bit more pressure just with your body weight. So you're going to get down there, find a spot, and then what we want to get to is where we can pin one of those troublesome spots down and then start moving that shoulder because it creates a little bit of movement through those muscles, whether that's this way, sweeping around this way, or even kind of bringing it across your body like this. That's all just going to create movement of the scapula itself, your shoulder blade, and cause those muscles while you have it pinned down with the ball to have to shorten and lengthen, and that's going to free up those spots for you. So that's getting in around that shoulder. We'll finish up with our lat here with foam rolling. I change the technique up compared to what you typically see because I find it's more effective, and then a banded stretch for the lat because the lat is so problematic for us. It tends to be so tight. So what we typically see with the foam rolling of the lat is that people are going like this. I find this relatively uncomfortable and hard to get good work done. What I prefer is to start on the kind of bottom portion of the lat here, so about mid rib cage, and then actually rotate my body itself on the foam roller, work through that spot, and then shift it up about a little eighth of a roll here, and keep doing that and use my body on the foam roller. I find it's way easier to control and have success with in getting to those spots on the lat. And what you'll find as you get up high enough is you can allow yourself to come off just the lat and even get onto that back portion of the shoulder as well and find some pretty gnarly spots. Again, too, not necessity here, but I do like the rumble roller if you can handle the pressure. I just find the nubs can get into those spots. However, if you're holding your breath, you can't carry a conversation, you're tensing up, you're wincing, you're making faces, that's too much and your nervous system is going to try and protect you, which won't allow those muscles to release as well. So adjust it to what you need. So if that's a regular foam roller, use a regular one. If you can get to this, I just find these nubs are so impactful on those little spots. Next, we're going to use the band here. So the real key with this band, because we're going to be putting a lot of tension on it, is how it's placed in your hand. So you want to come up through the loop and then grab onto the two bands. And we're just going to pull back until we have a lot of tension on it. Don't worry about having too much tension. Then drop down to one knee. So it's this opposite leg that's keeping us from shooting back forward. So we're dropping down, letting it pull that arm and that lat and forcing it to lengthen, because the lat wants to hold it short, but that band can continually pull. So eventually that lat wants to fatigue, and that's where we get all the benefit from this exercise, is once we fatigue that lat out a bit, our nervous system settled down a bit because we've been in this position and we're just breathing through it. And that's why this can be a super impactful exercise, but you do need to be at a good minute or more to get what we want out of this exercise. You can just hang out like this, let it pull, or what I like to is playing with different angles with it. For me, I get the most stretch here, all the way from my ribs up to where it's attaching at the shoulder there. And then you can also come forward and back a bit. So play with it, see where you find the most stretch. It might be here, and then just hang out there and let it do its work of the band. So that is the complete workout. We warm the shoulder up, we mobilize those tissues, then we challenge it through a fuller range of motion, challenging that shoulder to move a lot more than what we regularly see, and a lot of incorporating our core and the rest of our body into that shoulder, because it all works as a system in the end, and then finished off with some soft tissue work. Running a program like this for about 6 to 8 weeks will get you out of a ton of pain, get that shoulder into a much better position. Once you're out of pain and you're in a better position with less compensation patterns of those muscles, then you're going to get a more stable shoulder. And from there, you're going to be able to add a lot more strength, because if our body is in a place where it doesn't feel safe and strong and stable, then it's not going to allow you to push very heavy weight because it's worried it's going to get injured. It would rather protect you and say, hey, we can't do this. Once you get it stable and in good position, you'll be surprised at how much stronger you get and how much faster you get strong without relapsing back into having shoulder pain. So that's what I would recommend doing as your workout for about 6 to 8 weeks. If you have questions about this workout, drop them in the comments. Happy to answer those for you.